Welcome, friends. It's the end of a rabbit hole, and I'm glad I got the chance to share so much about this journey with you. Wednesday afternoon at around 2 p.m., Josh Duggar was sentenced to 12.5 years in federal prison for the accessing of CP on his personal laptop at the car lot his daddy bought for him. Over the past year, we have watched the Duggar family slowly but surely implode. Those kids grew up on TV as so many of us tuned in to watch and judge the Duggars' lifestyle and wholesome shenanigans like it was all in good fun. Little did most of us know what was going on behind the big house doors when the cameras weren't rolling. Turns out the Duggar family, like many of our own families, was desperately sweeping their secrets under a thick American-made rug from Walmart, praying that their God would lead them down a path of righteousness and outrageous financial gain to the promised land of TLC's fame and fortune. Annaduggar was the first to arrive at approximately 8:30 a.m. to attend Josh's sentencing. She walked into the courthouse in a navy blue dress any of us could have picked up at TJ Maxx, so different from the purity standards we came to expect on 19 Kids and Counting. She was accompanied by a young blonde law student who's been working for Travis Story, Josh's attorney. She remained calm and stoic, walking quickly to escape the cameras, and allegedly went straight into court to be seated directly behind the defense. Sojo Files is reporting that when Josh Duggar walked into the courtroom, Anna immediately gave him a hand signal universally meaning, "I love you." Anna remains a sad and tragic figure in my mind. Created and groomed for this role her entire life. She's been brainwashed for sure to believe Josh is it for her. He's all that really matters. Her life is meant to revolve around him. She's responsible for his successes and failures. In her mind, they are like one person, and to admit Josh is a predator is to admit there's something wrong with her own identity as well. It would open the floodgates to admit there's potentially something wrong with the IBLP, her own family, and many of those who've surrounded her for the past 30 years of her life. Maybe even to admit that there's something wrong with the way she's chosen to raise her children. Asking Anna to admit all these faults is asking a lot. But many women before her have been down this treacherous path. Some have chosen to truly humble themselves, leave their husbands, slowly and painfully pick up the pieces, work night shifts, hire babysitters, send their kids to public schools, rely on welfare, all in the name of protecting their kids from the piece of SHIT known as their father. So it's hard, but it's possible. In my videos, I reported on the rumors that Anna has become a hardcore devotee of the Duggar lifestyle, committed to remaining part of a family with money, fame, and privilege. I think this rings true again at Josh's sentencing. I believe Anna will stand by him. She'll get support and accolades from the many church members still supporting the Duggars, and that will be enough for her until Josh comes home in 12.5 years, or a little less. But still, at least for now, her children are protected from anything inappropriate happening with Josh. And she at least gets a break from being his 24-hour depository for all his issues, emotions, and whatever else he's been dumping on her for the past 10 years. Second to arrive for sentencing was Jim Bob Duggar. He arrived alone, looked the same as always, his potentially fake hair high and mighty on top of his head. But I sensed something else based upon everything I've read about Jim Bob's presence at the proceeding. I believe deep down, Jim Bob finally feels a sense of impotence. An inability to stop all this, to protect Josh all over again, to make the world bend to his will. Things are changing for Jim Bob and the Duggars in general. So many failed elections for both Jim Bob and his sons. No more TLC contracts. Many friends and family are starting to speak out publicly against him. People he used to control are no longer controllable. His empire is slowly crumbling, and I believe he can finally feel it. Jim Bob's life and power isn't what it once was. Other notable people to arrive are Joanna Duggar, who arrived with Jason Duggar at her side, and Bobby Holt, who was allegedly present for the entire sentencing. Sentencing began at 9:30 a.m. Anna sat behind Josh. David Waller sat next to her, probably providing some level of support. Jim Bob sat further down in the row, and onlookers said he mostly seemed to stay to himself. In true Duggar insanity fashion, Anna was seen talking cordially to people around her, laughing loudly, seemingly having a smile under her mask. Her body language said, "I'm fine. I'm actually great because God's got me. So who cares if my husband is going away for CP? As long as I fake it, I will eventually make it." Classic Anna. Desperately living everything the wisdom booklets sold to her as a child. I was completely shocked at how long the sentencing took. Foolishly, I was thinking maybe 2 hours at the most. They didn't finish until between 2 and 3 p.m. that day, but the majority of the morning was devoted to legal squabbling between the defense and prosecution. Basically, the defense needed to argue as much as possible to reduce Josh Duggar's points towards his sentence. They were able to successfully eliminate several points for him as the prosecution continued to push for the max sentence of 20 years. I was surprised that no one stood up to speak for Josh Duggar on the part of the defense, and I'm left reeling with an important question on my mind. Where was Michelle Duggar? I never expected her to come because I believe Michelle is smart enough and worldly enough to know that her firstborn son has serious problems. Maybe she even knows it better than any of us. I think Michelle is aware that Josh is guilty, possibly even knowing more about what he's been up to for many years than the public ever really came to understand. What can you do when you are the mother of a son who is struggling with S and P addiction, who also has a history of participating in SM towards his very young sisters? Well, hopefully you won't do what Michelle Duggar has done, but then again, it's so hard to put ourselves in the shoes of any of these people. And yet, out of all of the Duggars, I can probably most relate to Michelle on a certain level, because I'm a mom to kids with some additional needs, and I struggle to do what is best for them on a daily basis. Yet, there's something that really makes me angry with Michelle. Maybe I don't have a right to be, I'm not sure, but I'm still going to go ahead and express that anger now, here with you. Michelle Duggar, you should be ashamed for not showing up in court on Wednesday and carrying the burden we both know you shoulder for what's happened in your family. You are responsible for the choices you've made to get involved and stay in this CULT. You've subjected child after child to an upbringing you yourself weren't raised in. You've seen it cause repeated harm, yet you've continued to play the part of wife and missionary to bring the doctrine of the IBLP to other families and spread the word of Gothard. You know this crap has completely devastated the lives of your children. You bear responsibility for this. I'm not looking at Jim Bob because, frankly, he's an idiot, and I foresee no help for him to come forward and be honest about the IBLP. But you, Michelle, you are a mom. All of your choices have deeply affected 19 children you chose to bring into the world. I blame Josh for his choices. But why haven't you spoken out and said, I made a mistake in raising my children under the doctrine of the IBLP? I deeply encourage families who've bought into what I've been selling for the past 20 years to listen to me now. God would not want us to live this way. We must make changes. So, where was Michelle? Hiding from all of it, pretending she's so busy with her 18 other kids. Michelle is the one I'm still looking at like, hey girl, I see you. You can't hide from me. I know what you're up to and who you're trying to protect. Jim Bob is losing it, and soon you're not going to be able to hide behind those big house gates any longer. Meanwhile, Amy Duggar was in front of the courthouse letting everyone know, especially the Sun tabloid, that her cousin is disgusting and they shouldn't associate her with him. She wrote a letter to the judge about the need to lock Josh Duggar up and throw away the key. She likes to focus on how grossed out she is by CP. She definitely wants to be on the right side of history here. I'm glad she spoke up. She has a right to all of her feelings, and she's letting people know, I don't associate with this CRAP. I do think Amy has a tendency to do whatever she can to pull attention onto herself in a very look at me kind of way. But at least she's speaking out when very few others in her family have. Good job, Amy. But next time, please pick someone other than the Sun or without a crystal ball. I'm a big fan of interviewing with people who can be trusted in the Christian fundamentalist community. I can't deny that I wish people like Amy and Caleb Williams would interview with people like Sadie Carpenter from Leaving Eden or Preacher Boy. It would serve to better communicate a righteous purpose for these interviews rather than it just being about the fame and the tabloids. Okay, that's just my opinion. But back in the courtroom, Josh also remained stoic, sitting at his little desk surrounded by his defense team. Josh supposedly looks much of the same, no major changes yet, but I'm sure he'll look different in 12 and a half years. After all the haggling was completed, there was a lunch break. Here, I want to say, because I haven't gone over it before, there was a letter submitted for the prosecution. The mother of one of the children featured in the CP, Josh Duggar Access, submitted a letter to the court. In her letter, she made it clear what happened to her daughter in that video has gone on to haunt them for the rest of their lives. Her daughter is forever affected by the CSAM. Her daughter states in the letter, "Don't they know it's wrong to do that to a little girl? Don't they know it hurts?" Child SA and child trafficking is a terrible reality in this day and age. Accessing CP online means re-victimizing these kids, and that's why it's so important to show the world that accessing these files will result in prison time. The judge in this case was fair and stated that the letters submitted from Josh's side were helpful. The judge knows he can't spend 100% of his time crapping on Josh Duggar, but he made it clear that it's a big problem Josh hasn't accepted responsibility for what he did. The judge went forward to sentence Josh to 12.5 years to be served in either Texarkana, Arkansas, federal prison, or a similar prison in Texas. Both prisons are approximately a 4-hour drive away from the Duggars' home. In Texas, Josh can participate in a nationally awarded S-offender program. The judge recommended he avail himself to the therapy, but stated it's ultimately up to him. It will be Josh Duggar's choice whether or not he attends the S-offender treatment. Many people will balk at this, and I understand why, yet I know in my own practice, part of having the treatment be successful entails the perpetrator accepting responsibility and wanting to participate in therapy. I sincerely doubt Josh will ever choose to get involved in S-offender treatment. Because this is a federal case, Josh will be forced to serve at least 85% of his sentence. At that time, it's possible he could be released to some kind of halfway house for a period of time. Following his full release, he will remain on probation for 20 years, and he will always be on the S-offender registry. According to onlookers, there was very little response from family and friends to Josh's sentence. Some said Joanna got up and left the room when they started talking about what happened to her as a child, and that Jason Duggar looked sad as he listened in her absence. Some said they saw Jim Bob dabbing at his eyes with a tissue several times, but otherwise remained stoic. Allegedly, Anna didn't make any kind of move to show any emotion at all. As Josh Duggar was taken away at the end of the proceeding, he gave another "I love you" hand signal to Anna. Anna, Jim Bob, and all the other Duggars left separately and hurriedly made their way to their respective cars. So sad, and another example of living in a fantasy world. It's not normal to have a lack of any reaction to your son, your husband, your brother being sent away for 12 years. Even if Josh's legal team told all of you that you are not to show emotion, it's crazy how good you are at not showing emotion in this horrible time. One of the most interesting aspects of Duggar's sentencing for me is that the judge put a rule into place that Josh Duggar is not allowed to access pee of any kind after being released from prison. I think that's crazy. I'm not sure how he could really be expected to make that happen. Sadly, it almost makes me more frightened about what he might turn to if he gets out after 12 and a half years without any treatment and doesn't have access to the coping mechanism he's been using all along. No, none of it's ideal, but I foresee even greater problems in Josh Duggar's future. Most ironically of all, I am reminded of some crazy higher power karma when I realize just a few days before Josh Duggar's sentencing, Trooper Hutchins, the police trooper who was Jim Bob's friend and was eventually arrested for CP, was released from jail. Hutchins is the man Jim Bob allegedly brought Josh to admit his crimes against his sisters, and supposedly Hutchins told Josh not to do it again, but never made a report. The Sun is reporting state trooper who let Josh Duggar go over M claims freed from jail after 15-year CP sentence. It came just days before Josh, 34, was set to be sentenced on separate CP charges. Joseph T. Hutchins is believed to have spoken to Josh and his father, Jim Bob, sometime around 2005 after the teenager allegedly SA'd underage females, according to an In Touch report. However, Hutchins failed to follow up on the claims and just 2 years later was behind bars on his own charges. The investigating officer at the Arkansas State Police said at the time, "I can't comment or discuss this case because of the sensitive nature and because it involved a juvenile." Hutchins, then 69, was convicted and sentenced in 2007 on CP charges, but released on parole in 2010. In sickening details, it emerged that he had photos of one of his relatives on a camera. Soon after he was released, he was arrested again and charged with another CP offense. He was given a 60-year sentence, but a document obtained by The Sun showed this week he was approved for parole. 19 kids and counting star Jim Bob apparently turned his son Josh into the Arkansas State Police following allegations he'd been SMing young girls. After the trooper's arrest, someone in the police department reportedly contacted the CA hotline, leading to Crimes Against Children Division and Springdale Police becoming involved. A 2006 police report claimed Josh SM'd underage females in the family, and it included his sisters. Wow, this rabbit hole truly never ends. Because what will happen with Josh when he gets out in 12 and a half years? How can his children ever truly be safe? Look what happened to Duggar family friend Trooper Hutchins, released to only immediately be found with CP again, this time involving a relative. So scary and so sad. But here's the thing. For right now, tonight, some children somewhere are a little safer because of this 12-year sentence for Joshua Duggar. Having the case all over the media also served as a warning to others out there who might think about accessing this kind of pee, what they potentially have in store for themselves. The IBLP is still going, but I truly believe uncovering all of these truths about the Duggars has given some members pause. Many people have left and are leaving. Survivors felt more support as the truth about this famous Fundy family was exposed. So, there's more work to do on this front. But for me, for now, I'm at the end. I'm hoping and praying all of you are safe and cozy tonight. Take care of yourselves and take some comfort in knowing I'll be around, forever heading down a new rabbit hole.